Welcome to Raw Conscious Talk Podcast. Today, I will be speaking on my own personal experiences. I am currently in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm up in the mountains. It's beautiful. And I just thought it was really important that those who subscribe and those who watch my interviews would know a little bit more about the host. So this is going to take me several videos, and I'm just going to start right at the beginning. So to introduce myself, my name is Tammy Cheney. I am the host of Raw Conscious Talk Podcast, and this is going to be my experiences. So for me personally, my experiences started at the age of 3. And it may have been experiences before that, but as far back as I can remember is the age of 3. So at the age of 3, I lived in a home that was very neglectful and abusive. I'm not going to go into detail about all that, but I don't know if it was a punishment or if it was, I was so unpredictable as a 3-year-old. My mom would lock me in this food closet. And so now this food closet was basically a door. And when you open the door, there would be shelves and all the food would be stacked on the shelves. And then down in the very bottom, she kept that opened and she would put me down in there and close the door. And so in this place where I was closed up in, it was extremely scary to me. I was obviously out of my mind as a 3-year-old being locked up in a little cubby. And I began to be able to communicate with an entity. An entity began to communicate with me. And now, as a 3-year-old, I don't know that I would have realized that that was something abnormal, I guess you could say. So my times in that closet space began to be a positive thing for me. And so I stopped fighting to go into the closet. I would go in willingly. But at a certain point in time, I realized, and I can't tell you how it happened, but I realized that that same entity could actually speak to me outside that closet. And that became a common communication every day, all day. I was continually communicating with this entity. And so as I strolled through life, I don't really have too many memories between the ages of 3 and 5. But at the age of 5, I had my first out-of-body experience. Now, of course, at the age of 5, I had no idea that it was called out-of-body experience. And as well as at the age of 5, I had no idea that that wasn't normal. But for me personally, it was really scary. It was extremely scary to feel my insides, that's the only way I can describe it, my insides coming to my outsides. And but once I got out of my body, it was just pure bliss. That's the only way I can describe it. Once I got out of my body, I could explore, I could move, I could go to certain places, and I could fly. I could go over power lines. One thing that I never took into account in these experiences is somehow I was only allowed to go so far. And I recently interviewed somebody that had talked about there's this cord that is connected, I guess, apparently from your belly button to your soul, and that made complete sense with me. I'm like, no wonder I couldn't go any higher, because there would be times where I would be like, tonight I'm gonna go extra high, I'm gonna go way up high, and I would get over the power lines and get to a certain point just above like tree level, and I couldn't go any farther. And I didn't even know how to explain that, to be honest. I had no idea why I was being stopped. But coming back into my body, well, let me just explain. Coming out of my body, I would know that I was going to come out of my body because I would feel like this vibrating on my body, and because it became a regular occurrence, you know, after that first time, I knew sometimes even hours before it would happen, I would start getting these vibrations, and then they'd fade out, and then they'd come back, and because it was a scary experience for me, just the part, and I just want to iterate this, just the part of coming out of my body, because I physically felt the zhit feeling of coming out of my body, and that's the only way I can describe it, and that scared me. And so when I would have to come back to my body after being out and exploring and just being in pure bliss, I would freak out, and I would be like, no, I don't want to go back in that body, because I would see my body right there. And I didn't want to go back in, and I would fight it tooth and nail. And of course, I didn't have control of that. I would go back in every single time, regardless of how I felt about it. And so, it's getting a little windy. And so, that became a regular occurrence in my life that I had no control over. It would happen at will whenever it wanted, and I had no way of stopping it. So as I continued to go through life at that time, it just became normal. And eventually I did get over the fear. It just became, okay, I'm gonna come out of my body, basically, and I would just go with it. And so, meanwhile, in my home, I was still experiencing severe neglect and abuse. And so I think going to that place became a place of peace, I guess you could say. But what ended up happening is I was able to leave my body, that's the only way I can describe it, without having to go through the experience anymore. I could just leave. The way that I describe it is I would just leave the room. And so I would be in other places, and I would be communicating with, in my kid brain, even going into adult life, I felt like I was communicating with angels. Now, when I say this, I didn't physically see entities ever. I never physically saw an entity. I was just it was almost like I was one with them, and I just had pure, perfect communication where I could communicate with them and they could communicate with me. And it wasn't communication like how I'm communicating now. We did not use our mouths. In fact, I don't really remember there being a physical body. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't remember being a physical body. And so when we communicated, it was just automatic knowing amongst each other. Like, a lot of people call it telepathic communication. And so we'll just go with that, I guess, telepathic communication. But I had full communication, and I began to absolutely love being in that place, where it came to a time in my life where, I don't know, probably around 6, 7, 8 years old, where I spent majority of my time on what I call the other side. I spent most of my time. I was not very present, probably 90% of the time, in this human experience. And that continued throughout my whole life. I got to a place where I would just slip out of myself and not even be aware that I have slipped out of myself. I would slip back in myself without even being aware that I ever slipped out. And so at that time, when all this began, we lived at another location. Then we moved to this trailer park that we lived in. That was between the ages of 4 and 5. And then my parents bought a home. So the new home that we moved into was where I started experiencing things, I guess, beyond what I had been experiencing. So, of course, in this new home, the abuse was still the same. It was continual neglect and abuse on a daily basis. There was never a day that went by that there wasn't some sort of incident or multiple incidents. And in my room where I slept at, I began to wake up. Well, I actually wouldn't be asleep. I don't think, anyways. When it started, I don't think I was asleep, because as it continued, I was definitely not asleep. But this experience that I was having is, I would hear and when I say man, okay, the only reason why I say man is because whatever this entity was, it was wearing heavy boots. And so I would hear these heavy boot walking coming from the living room or wherever it was coming from, and coming to my bedroom. Now, this was horribly frightening to me. I was scared to death of the man with the heavy boots. And I tried to tell my family that there was a man coming and visiting me, and the responses were basically laughing at me or telling me I was dreaming, this, that, and the other. But this literally became a continual thing that would happen, not every day, not even once a week, maybe 3 times a month it would happen. So it was a regular occurrence, and I want to say that it was between the ages of 6 and 8, somewhere around that age frame. And so what ended up happening, because my family didn't believe me, is one night I heard him coming, and before that night came, somehow, I can't explain it, I really can't, but somehow I sensed, sometimes, not every time, when that entity was going to visit me. And so that specific night, I put a piece of paper on my little nightstand that I had next to my bed with a pencil, and I waited for him to appear. I was wide awake, and sure enough, he came that night. My senses were right. He came that night, and I immediately wrote on the paper, "I am awake." And that's basically, I might have put it somehow a little bit different, but basically it was a note so that I would be able to prove to my family that when this man comes, I'm awake. Now, I never looked at it. And the reason being is as soon as that entity would get to my door, I would instantly take the covers and put it over my head and just be shaking in pure terror under my covers. And I did try to get over that fear at that time, and just on many different occasions after it had happened so many times, I tried to be brave enough to just peek under the covers and see what this entity looks like. And it failed every time. I was so frightened of this entity that there was just no way I was going to look at it, because all I could picture was the most horrifying sight that you could possibly see. So I didn't ever look at the entity, and it never came physically into my bedroom. It would stand at the door and just watch me until it left. And I was not the only one that was aware of this entity, but we had this cat, and the incident with the cat only happened one time. Most of the time the cat would be out all night. She was an indoor-outdoor cat, and generally she would be out at night, but this particular night she was in. And this cat was not kid friendly. It was my mom's cat, and she just was not kid friendly. So this cat never came in my bed ever and slept with me or anything with any of us actually at night. And so this particular night, the entity came in, and of course I was terrified. I don't know how it was coming in. I don't know if it was coming through the front door, coming through the back door. I have no idea how it was coming in. I never heard anything beyond just hearing the boots hitting the floor. It was like bump, bump, bump. You heard that it was boots. And this particular night, the entity, and this only happened one time, went into the kitchen, or it was coming through the back door, which would be into the kitchen. And I heard silverware in the kitchen moving around, and me as a little girl, frightened out of my mind, scared to death, I thought it was grabbing a knife or something and was gonna come and kill me. And that particular night, the cat was in the house, and the cat came in my room and jumped up in my bed and was under the covers, like scared also. Like the cat was shaken. I was shaken. I was out of my mind, like frightened, because now I'm thinking tonight's the night that this entity, whatever it is, kills me. So, and of course it obviously didn't happen, but when we all got up in the morning, I of course told my family, and I kind of skipped a part. Let me go back. I showed my family that note that it happened incidents before. I can't tell you when it happened incidents before when I made that note, but I showed them. I'm like, look, I was awake. I put a piece of paper and a pencil next to my nightstand so that I can prove to you guys that I was awake. And it was just completely laughed off, and nothing came about it. And then, of course, this incident, I explained to them, the cat was even scared. The cat knew that this entity was there. and that it was coming for me because it came right in my bed. It jumped up in my bed and it literally got under the covers with me. And so that specific night was one of the nights that I had made up my mind. I already knew it was going to come that night, and I had made up my mind I'm going to peek under my covers and look. And so now I have the cat as protection. It felt like protection, even though it wasn't much of protection. But I felt like I had something else with me. So this time I'm going to look. And I didn't. I chickened out and I couldn't look to see what this entity looked like. So I am going to go ahead and stop this for now. And because I'm going to make multiple videos this month of sharing my experience, and I'm going to take my time and go through it slowly and thoroughly as I possibly can. And we'll go ahead and end it here. I just want to say that I'm truly thankful for those who watch the interviews that I post. I'm truly thankful for those who have subscribed. I'm truly thankful for those who have liked my videos and commented. And I'm just grateful and thankful to be able to have the opportunity to share and to share others' experiences. Truly, when I found near-death experiences, which was about 5 years ago now, my whole life just lit up and unfolded in front of me. I was so thankful and grateful to find near-death experiences, mainly because it was people going and visiting on the other side, and I was well aware of what being on the other side meant at that point. So again, thank you so much. If you like this video, please like it. If you want to leave a comment, I'd absolutely love to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd love for you to subscribe, and we'll just go from here. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I am absolutely gonna have a wonderful rest of my day, and I'll see you the next time.